Markets had closed, saying, I think that we want to maybe de-escalate this with China once the insiders made a lot of their money after the market crashed. You see that kind of cycle repeat itself over and over again. Here's another meme that I saw. Listen up, President Xi, I'm sorry. There's a lot going on, though, because Trump's volatility, what Trump's causing to the markets, it's having real world impact. Yesterday, Intel announced that it planned to lay off more than 20% of its staff this week. ConocoPhillips plans major layoffs as part of its broad restructuring. Then you take a look at what was happening with Tesla. Elon sounded extremely depressed on the earnings call yesterday after Tesla profits plunged 71% from this Gizmodo article. They explained how Musk's tone was noticeably downbeat. He didn't have the same carnival-style salesmanship that often accompanies the public-facing announcement for Tesla. He seemed very, very down. And there was a few accounting tricks that they did as well, where they sold some of these regulatory credits. But for that, they would have actually lost money this quarter. So Donald Trump in the Oval Office, let me just share with you, this is the moment where he talked about how those 145% tariffs were too high, very, very high, he said. Here, play this clip.
Earlier today, Treasury Secretary Gustin suggested that with the tariff rates as high as they are now, it's effectively an embargo of trade between the United States and China. Do you see that?
That's true. 145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It's not going to be that high. It got up to there. We were talking about fentanyl, where various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high.
What level do you think it'll come down to?
It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero. It used to be zero. We were just destroyed. China was taking us for a ride, and just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're going to be very good to China, have a great relationship with President Xi, but they would make billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, and they would build their military out of the United States and what they made, so that won't happen. But they're going to do very well, and I think they're going to be happy, and I think we're going to live together very happily and ideally work together. So I think it's going to work out very well. But no, it's at 145%. It will not be anywhere near that number.
Oh, I had to do it. Moink. 4 companies control over 80% of the U.S. meat industry. China now controls the largest portion of U.S. pork. These companies are using mobster-like tactics to crush American family farms. And with the additives they're putting into our food, Americans are stuck with sketchy meat. So what can we do about it? Let me tell you about a company that's coming up swinging on behalf of American family farms and your family's food security. It's called Moink. As I said at the beginning, Moink, Moink. The business is simple. Moink's meat comes from animals raised outdoors where a pig is free to be a pig. Their farmers are given an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, and they deliver meat straight to your doorstep at prices that you can actually afford. Born, raised, and harvested right here in the United States. Support American family farms and join the Moink movement today at moinkbox.com/MidasTouch right now and get free wings for life. They're the best wings you'll ever taste for free, but for a limited time. Here's how you spell it. MOINK box.com/MidasTouch. That's moinkbox.com/MidasTouch. One of the things that Donald Trump said also, and this is, what's the expression? When a clown enters the palace, they don't become royal, the palace becomes a circus, or something like that. I always get the expression wrong. But, here's Donald Trump now bragging. He says that he brought egg prices down 93 to 94% since the regime took office. It's the most ridiculous line. What do you think? Eggs were $84 a dozen? It's this 93 to 94%. It's just some of the most stupid lies that they tell. And again, it's just this over and over again, lie after lie after lie. Here, play this clip.
But if you remember my first week, I was standing here, Paul, and they were screaming about eggs. The cost of eggs have gone through the roof. They were up like 500, crazy, like 4 or 5 times. And we won't have eggs for Easter, they were saying. There will be no eggs. You can't order eggs. They wanted us to order plastic in the shape of eggs. Well, yesterday we had 48,000 people at the Easter hunt. They call it the Easter roll at the White House. And we had all eggs. And as you know, the cost of eggs has come down like 93, 94% since we took office. And they're pretty much normally priced now. Great job. Our Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, did a very good job. But groceries have come down. It's all coming down. The only thing that hasn't come down, but it hasn't gone up much, are interest rates. And we think the Fed should lower the rate. We think that it's a perfect time to lower the rate. And would like to see our chairman be early or on time as opposed to late. Late's
Look, the Associated Press reported that U.S. egg prices increased to record highs this past week, dashing hopes of cheap eggs by Easter. I mean, those are just the facts. And the thing with this Trump regime also is, the cruelty is the point. There's all these distractions taking place as they're just screwing over marginalized communities, just screwing over workers, screwing over just regular folks, 401ks and pensions, just to give you an example. So they say they want to abolish the Department of Education to get rid of education, but they still want to use the Department of Education starting May 5th to do a massive wage garnishment of millions of people who defaulted on their student loans. So they're doing a large-scale garnishment operation, but then gutting services like lunch and helping poor kids and helping out kids with disabilities through the Department of Education. And then there's this also. So as RFK Jr., who runs HHS, Health and Human Services, goes on. He's been giving all these speeches where he spreads lies about autism and vaccines, just horrific stuff that he's saying. HHS is planning to cut the National Suicide Hotlines program for LGBTQ youth. In February, the program received an average of 2,100 contacts per day. So that's what they want to focus on too. The federal government plans to eliminate services for the LGBTQ youth who call 988, the National Suicide and Crisis Hotline, according to a Health and Human Services budget draft leaked last week. The budget, first reported by the Washington Post, would go into effect October if approved by Congress. Since the hotline's launch in 2022, callers have been able to speak with counselors trained to work with specific at-risk populations, including LGBTQ youth, who are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their peers. The service for LGBTQ youth has received 1.3 million calls, texts, or chats since 2022. In February, the program received an average of 2,100 contacts per day. It's just pure, unadulterated cruelty as RFK Jr. goes up and gives a press conference whining that his kids have food allergies. And why do his kids have food allergies? Here, play this clip.
We have all these autoimmune diseases, these exotic diseases. Again, I never heard of juvenile diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Crohn's disease, and 100 others that were just unknown when I was a kid. I never knew anybody with a peanut allergy. I never knew anybody with a food allergy. Why do 5 of my 7 kids have allergies? I never knew of anybody who had eczema. I knew of a very small number of children who had asthma, but that has exploded as well today.
To me, the purpose of government is to help people, to protect people, to uplift people. And for the Trump regime, the purpose of government is to help one group, billionaires and oligarchs, and then to inflict pain and suffering on the rest of us. That's what their goal is. And so, I think also these billionaire and oligarchs, it's just not enough for them to have 1 private jet or 10 private jets or 10 yachts. They also, to me, have a sick fetish of watching others suffer, to compensate for whatever pathological, malignant, narcissistic, whatever, as Senator Bernie Sanders says, there's a mental illness of greed, he almost calls it. But part of that is the enjoyment of suffering of other people. We have to recognize that, and we have to talk about housing. We have to talk about education.